So, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I know that we have people from different countries joining us today, and I'm sure that we'll have a number of people that come on afterwards to watch the recording. So, I'm recording it for the specific purpose that you can share it with your partners, your clients, whoever needs to see the presentation and or would like to hear as to what we're doing and where we stand in terms of what's happening in South Africa as far as the NQF, the QCTO, and SACWA, and CETA, and so forth. Specifically, in relation to occupational health and safety. So the PowerPoint presentation will provide you some guideline and some information, and the topic is really becoming an occupational health and safety training provider. Whether you are an in-house trainer within an organization like a corporate, or alternatively you're an independent who wants to run courses yourself, we welcome you. It's a good place to be, and I think that you'll get some of your questions answered over here. Now, if you do have any questions, please hold your questions right to the end. I'm going to at the end, open the mics, and then you can ask your questions. So maybe you'd like to just grab a notepad, and doing that, you would be able to, I just want to put the picture up there, you'd be able to hold the questions till the end, and then we'll answer those questions as best as we can. Okay, so here we go. Let's get straight into it. It's important to note that these presentations that we do, we're not lawyers, we're not legal advisors, but they are here from an educational point of view. And the idea is that you will gather as much information as possible so you can go and do your own research. And that, at the end of the day, is the answer. Not to blindly follow what other people say is the case, but to go and do your research and satisfy yourself that the facts and information is accurate. Penny and I started this business, INTRA Safe, about 12 years ago, with the specific intention of helping occupational health and safety trainers set up their own businesses. Now, this applies to individuals who are commercial training providers and or companies that have an internal training department. We're members of SIOSH, IOSH, and APID. If you haven't heard of APID before, that's an association of professional training providers based here in South Africa. Very, very, very focused and very active in the marketplace. So our team comprises of these wonderful people, and they will be available to answer some of your questions as well, either now or later. I'm just going to run through it very, very quickly. There's myself, and then Penny. Penny's my partner. Then Natalie, the young lady with the dark hair and the white top. She's my daughter. Penny's my wife, and then Natalie's my partner. Good grief. Natalie is my daughter. Then the lady with the big smile. She's our debtors and creditors clerk. The gent with the check shirt is our attorney. The lady with the pink top, she is and heads up our training material development center. The fellow with the black shirt and the glasses is our accountant. Then the young man with the gray shirt, he is in charge of our e-learning platform. The fellow with the very, very bright shirt, who happens to be a surfer as well. He heads up our information technology and systems, and Natalie will talk a little bit about that. And then the fellow with the black shirt, he actually looks after our IT systems as well. Then there are other people that freelance with us so that we can provide you with the service that you deserve. Okay, so right at the outset, I say to people, make sure that you get a copy of the prospectus, because much of what I'm going to be saying today is in the prospectus. You can ask Natalie for it, and she'll provide you with that information. And having said that, I'm going to ask Natalie just to quickly introduce herself so that you know who she is.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie and I'm the CRM manager. So I'm usually your first point of contact on your journey to becoming a licensee. I'm here to answer any of your initial questions, provide you with any of the initial information that you need, and to set up any meetings, one-on-ones that you would like to have with Ken and Penny just to answer your questions. So I'll drop my details in the chat, and it's great to have you with us today.
Alternatively, you can go onto the website, intrasafe.co.za, and it says request more info. Click there, and there will be an automated response from the website that will send you a copy of the prospectus. Now, we really would and appreciate the fact that you are here, and we will provide you with as much information as possible, either digitally or alternatively by request. So enough with that. Let's move straight into the presentation. So we know that in South Africa, there's 16.5 million employees. About 500,000 of those are actually involved in the mining industry. We also know that there are millions of people that are unemployed currently. And it means, and as we hear on the news all the time, that these employed and unemployed people really need upskilling where possible. And we form part of that industry. So we can see that there is a massive need for skills training and just as large a need for occupational health and safety training. We see that in the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations, where it stipulates where the training must take place and who must do the training and so forth. And today we'll be talking about that a little bit. But if you haven't got a copy of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, please make a point of getting a copy, putting it onto your phone, putting it onto your laptop so that you can go and do your own research. Remember, I'm saying do your research. Great. Now, the question is who must do the training and who must be trained? So if you look at the Occupational Health and Safety Act, we see in Section 8, D and E, that it says that the employer must establish the hazards and the precautionary measures. This is foundational to all health and safety training in South Africa. If you are an employer, it's your obligation to find out what the dangers, hazards, and risks are in the workplace, and then to write precautionary measures. Now, can I just quickly stop here for a second and say the following? If occupational health and safety training is being run, and it is not based on the hazards and the precautionary measures of the learner, then we're missing the boat. It has to be based on that. And then from there, it says that the employer shall provide information, instructions, training, and supervision. That's the foundation. All right, moving on from there, we see in Section 13, it says that every employee, I mentioned there's 17 million or 16.5 million employees in South Africa. It says every employee must be made conversant, interesting word, that conversant, with the hazards as well as the precautionary measures to be taken. So please bear in mind that occupational health and safety training, which is generic, one size fits all, packaged training, may not meet the legal requirements as required by the Act and as required by the employer. Okay, so what kind of training could fall under this category of hazard-based? So remember, it just said now, the employer must identify the hazards. And I've got a list of possible hazards here. And if you look at that, you'll probably see some of them that you go, yep, absolutely. I get it. I see it. That's exactly what we do and or need to do. And if you work within an environment where you are the training officer within the organization, I'm sure that you're going to find, based on a hazard identification and a risk assessment, that these hazards are present. Okay, some of them might be direct hazards and others might be indirect hazards, but the list continues. And you have a look at this and you think, well, my goodness gracious me, there's a lot of training that needs to be done. And the law says information, instructions, training, and then it tags on the word supervision. Supervision. Number 61, supervisory skills. So there we go. There's 67 potential possible topics that training needs to take place. So if I was an auditor and I went along to an organization, I'd say, have you done a hazard identification and risk assessment? Have you written the precautionary measures? And have you written that into a training session or an instruction session or an information session? That would give me an indication as to whether it's being done according to the legal requirements. Okay, if you want a copy of this list here, just drop Natalie a line or just pop it into your request into the chat box, and I'll send you this image as well. Okay, so now we've got training that takes place in South Africa on a regular basis. Most of it is based on non-credit bearing legal compliance training. And we'll explain that if you don't understand that term, non-credit bearing legal compliance training versus accredited training. Accreditation is something that we'll be talking about a lot today, and I'll break this down for you. Okay, so then the next question comes up is who can present this training? Well, we saw there that the employer must provide. So the employer is the one that is responsible to present the training. The employer, but the employer is way too busy. The employer is going to be running around, obviously running the business, trying to maintain the production and or grow the business and things like that. So what they can do is that they can, in terms of the Act, appoint contractors or, as we better know them, mandatories. And mandatories, have a look at the definition in the Act, is a contractor. So if you intend being a training provider, you would then be a mandatory. Now, that's great. That's fine. You can do it for and on behalf of the employer. However, there's a problem. Do you realize that as a mandatory, that you assume quite a lot of the responsibilities of the employer and you could find yourself in deep water? Please have a look at that section 37. It's just an extract. It says when an employee or mandatory of any employer or user does or omits to do an act which should be an offence in terms of the act for the employer or any other such user to do or omit to do, he or she shall be liable to be convicted and sentenced in respect thereof, as if he or she were the employer or user. Wow. I just need to warn you, caution you, that by becoming a training provider or a mandatory, that you need to be aware of what the legal requirements are. But fortunately, there are provisions in the legislation where you can enter into agreement with the employer where you are no longer responsible for the employer's duties or functions or responsibilities. Okay, so having said that, I wrote a document some time ago. It's like an article called Am I allowed to do occupational health and safety training? Because there seems to be something of a misnomer or misinformation where people say, well, you have to be accredited, you have to be registered. Well, we'll investigate that. So what does it mean to be accredited or certified or registered? I've listed a couple of things here, which it's important to know the definition or the description of these words: accredited, agreed upon, aligned, approved, certified. All of these things are different. By the way, have a look at the one that says agreed. Do you know that occupational health and safety representative training has to be agreed upon by the committee? Not SACWA, not CETA, not QCTO, not NQF, nothing like that. The law says the committee, or at least the internal mechanisms within an organization, have to agree upon the health and safety rep training. And that's section 18. Then more words: competent, compliant, registered, verified, licensed. And I often get into conversations with people, and it's clear that they don't have this list of words, this lexicon in front of them. And I had somebody the other day say to me, I am an accredited training material provider. I go, that's wonderful. Who accredited you? Because there's no such accreditation in terms of the NQF Act or the SACWA Act. He just made up that term and he adopted it. He's probably registered, but not accredited. Only a company can be accredited. Okay, so important that you know these things, because remember, we are dealing with criminal legislation. And I don't like flaunting the fact that it's the law. I'd rather have people do the training because they want to prevent injuries and diseases and accidents and death and things like that. That's why I want them to do the training. Now, of course, if you are a corporate and you have a company and you have responsibilities and you're not a training company as such, you may want to look at doing your own in-house training for the following reasons. Firstly, financial, then compliance, then so that you can customize it. Of course, you need to make sure that the training is efficient, and then finally, providing knowledge. So that's why one would want to do in-house training. It's a huge saving, time, effort, energy, and so forth, and money. And that's why we say to people, in-house training is an option. Now, you don't have to do it in-house. You don't have to set up a training department, but you can appoint somebody to do it for you. And if you are thinking of becoming a training provider, may I suggest that you look at the screen, grab your phone, take a photograph of it, because this is a bit of a checklist to see whether you would be ready to become a training provider. Interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of things when we talk to people about becoming training providers, they are not familiar with what their requirements are, and we will guide you, we'll help you. And that's one of the primary purposes of our organization. So for a moment, have a look at that list, take a photograph of the screen, and then we'll move on. Great, let's move on. Remember this document that I mentioned? Am I allowed to do occupational health and safety training? The answer is categorically yes, you are. There are one or two places, well, maybe just half a dozen places, where the legislation dictates who may do the training. And we'll detail that for you as well. Okay, now here's an interesting fast fact. The fact is that if you're going to do accredited training, there's a lot of people involved. A lot of activities involved. And if you think of it as a journey, I'm not going to read it for you. You can take a photograph of that, or I'll send it to you via WhatsApp. But have a look at that compared to just normal legal compliance training. That's accredited training and all the activities and timelines. And that's legal compliance training. And you can see this is way, 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 way better when it comes to 1, 2, 3 day courses, and the employer needs to comply with the law. But there are other reasons why people would want to have accredited training. Now, what if we don't do this training? What if we fail to provide information, instruction, and training? Or what if you, as a mandatory, fail to satisfy the needs of the law and the client and the employees? What then? Well, the legislation talks in section 38, and it references section 8 and 13. It says any person, now that's you and me, an employer, an employee. It says any person, contractors, subcontractors, mandatories, who is guilty of an offense and convicted in terms of this act, there is a 50,000 Rand fine. Now, I mentioned I don't like flaunting the law. I don't like beating people over the head with the law. I happen to come out of a law enforcement background. I worked for NOSA for a couple of years. I've been involved in this world for this, specifically the health and safety training world, for about 35 years. I don't have 50,000 Rand per offense, and that's per offense, please note. And then, of course, those of you that know that there is an amendment bill in the offing, we're not sure where it is. They talk about it a lot, but we haven't seen it yet. And when that amendment bill comes out, the fine is going to shift up to 5 million Rand if it goes through as it is right now. It's hectic. So these are incentives to get training done, either internally as an in-house trainer or alternatively to provide training so that the employer can get on with the job of running their organization. And that's why we say become an occupational health and safety training licensee. That's what we call it. Licensee is a word that comes out of the Consumer Protection Act, and that Consumer Protection Act talks about franchises and licenses. Now, at this stage, this is not a franchise. It is a license. Okay, more about that in our prospectus document. And this is what the license looks like. It comprises of a number of elements. And quite simply, I'll show you where they all fit together. Firstly, we've got different options. And then we have onboarding and orientation. We have training material orientation. Then we've got compliance, legal compliance training material that we've developed, some 25 of them. We have an e-learning platform. We have SACWA unit standard line training material, which some of it is still usable. We have a YouTube channel where we run webinars and product updates and things like that. And then from an accreditation point of view, we have QCTO aligned training material. We have a QCTO DIY Accredi kit, and we have accreditation workshops for those of you that want to manage your own accreditation. And the last point that we deal with is that we have some very, very effective networking opportunities that you can take advantage of. Good. So having said that, what are the licenses? Well, there's a starter, basic, prime, prime plus, and platinum license. And that information is in the prospectus, and you can go through it and you can have a look at the features and benefits of each of those licenses. But not now. We'll send you the prospectus if you request it, or you go onto the website and you request more information. Okay, so what do we do? Well, in some instances, we come across people that have never run occupational health and safety training courses before. I was chatting to a young man who's a food inspector and very involved in the food world. And he was saying to me he wants to move into this world. So how do we support licensees or trainers? And I'll explain how that works. Firstly, we've got 25 different training programs that you can use. Now, these are not credit bearing. They're not unit standard aligned. Very important to note that. These are legal compliance. The law says do it, therefore do it. You have to do it. You have no option. And it's dependent on your risk profile. So if you look at that list, 25, I'm sure you'll see some programs over there which you can do. Now, we provide this training program or this training material as a learner guide, a learner workbook. We have facilitator or trainer guides. We have PowerPoints for every single one of them. And you could literally do an orientation with this and get up and running quickly. So having said that, we have a training material catalog. And if you drop your request into the chat box below, we can send you the catalog and you can see the actual detail. I just want to go back one. You'll see there that number 11 is ErgoTrack, Ergonomics and Regulations. And you may know, I'm sure you do, that in 2020 we got a ergonomics regulation that was published and promulgated and came out. Now, that's been around for a long time, 2020. And yet, I often come across organizations, individuals that don't run ergonomics courses. And if you look at the regulation itself, there's something like 8 to 10 different places where the regulation insists on training. It's wonderful. I often joke about it and I say, I love the legislators because they write legislation and then we have training that we can run or training material we can develop. So think about the ergonomics and I'll tell you how a little bit of how we go about getting you up and running so that you can run these courses. But we'll provide you with more information in the catalog and, of course, in the prospectus. Then we've got an e-learning platform. So of the 25, we've currently got 18 of our programs that are already available on e-learning. And there's a good reason for it. One, you can actually sell this e-learning to your clients. You can sell attendance of the programs, and Penny, our financial director, will share that information. Will share the proceeds and the profits with you. Once you share the information with her, she'll set the client up online and get them going. Okay, so having said that, that's a really good option. But here's another reason. The reason is this, is that maybe you know nothing about ergonomics. Maybe this is a topic that you're unfamiliar with. And I've just said 8 to 10 places where in the regulation, it talks about training, 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 training. So what we say immediately is you attend the e-learning program, go to the Ergonomics ErgoTrack e-learning program, attend it, go through the various tests and assessments and things like that, and then get a certificate of participation. Now, does that make you an expert? No, not at all. Forget. Not going to happen in a million years by just attending a one-day course. This course just opens your mind to the topic of ergonomics. Then the next thing that we do is we say, watch the videos. We have recorded material that we put. The co-developer of the training material, a man by the name of Dale Kennedy, we recorded his presentation, and it's available for you to use as orientation and familiarization. So you do the e-learning, then you watch the videos. Then you unpack all the training material, and I mentioned there's facilitator guide, and there's learner guides, and there are PowerPoints and things of that nature. Now, at this stage, you're starting to get your head around the topic, and guess what? You can go out and you can do an information session. Now, those of you that are familiar with the health and safety terminology will know there's a thing called a toolbox talk, and a toolbox talk is a talk, and you can do it having done those 3 steps. The first step, e-learning. Second step, watch the videos. Third step, unpack the training material, and you can run an hour or 2 information session, because that's what it says. You must inform, instruct, and train. I'm sure you're starting to understand now how this process works. It means that we're not going to leave you just to blunder on. We're going to assist you as and when you need the assistance. Okay, then we have about 40 old unit standard aligned training materials. Now, I say old unit standard aligned because most of them have either expired or about to expire. But the course material is still great. You can use the course material and you can run the program not as a credit bearing course, not a course where you're going to issue a certificate of competency, but just an attendance or a participation course. And we've got a lot of very, very good material over there. Okay, then we also recognize that you're now getting your business together and you want to sell e-learning, whether it's information sessions, instruction sessions, or training. And I'm going to ask Natalie just to quickly talk about the online marketing presence setup, because this is her department. Natalie, can you come in here and just quickly chat?
Yeah, sure. So in the basic and the prime license, what's included is what we call an online marketing presence setup. And this just helps you get visible and credible on a couple of platforms. If you are familiar with SEO, which is search engine optimization, this just means that you become discoverable. So you may or may not already be on these platforms, but it's very necessary when you are starting to put yourself out there and build your brand and digital marketing presence. So I help with an initial setup. If you already have an established presence, then I will just optimize what you already have and give you some guidance in terms of how you can get going. I also supply you with a whole rollout plan of how to start if it is something that's new for you, or if you have someone who's going to be assisting you, which is always beneficial. If you do have the resources to have someone to assist you, then we do suggest that that's a way to go. Thanks so much.
Fantastic, Natalie. Thank you so much. And for those of you that have somebody, as Natalie said, that's great. Natalie's got a 3-year degree from UCT in media. She's worked for a number of large advertising agencies in the social media space, and she's helped a couple of dozen of our INTRA licensees actually set up their online marketing presence. And you will notice that as you become a licensee, we'll be talking marketing, 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 because you might be the most brilliant trainer using the most excellent material, which is ours, and you still need to market it, need to go out into the marketplace and talk to people. So more about that in our orientation sessions and so forth, and in some of our videos. Okay, so some of the videos include topical things. So there's material that goes around orientation. I mentioned the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the Amendment Bill, and I said that the fine is possibly going up to 5 million rand. So on our YouTube channel, we have a video on the Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Bill. And you'll see there's things like Introduction to Information AI. And there is DIY QCTO accreditation. And there's a program called BFAR, which is the Basic Emergency First Aid Responder Orientation Program, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So we've got a lot of material. I think we've got 72 videos there that you could use, and you can share it with your own staff members, your clients, and somebody who's going to come on board and help you freelance with you. You can insist that they watch these videos. Okay, we have an AI session coming up shortly again. So if you become a licensee, you'll be able to attend these, and you'll be able to attend those for nothing. Okay, then a big part of this entire process is getting you going, and we'll call it orientation. Penny does a 30-minute onboarding. Then we have a monthly 4-hour orientation session for licensees. And we talk sales and marketing and advertising. We talk product. We talk law. We talk things that you as a training provider, either internally as an in-house trainer and or an external trainer going out into the marketplace, you really do need to know this stuff. We've got a half-day Zoom session on the Occupational Health and Safety Act and recordings on that. We have a 2-day online Train the Trainer, which is really quite nice. I mean, we call it, I think we're going to call it the launch program. And then for those of you that get the bigger licenses, one person can go on an ETDPC to accredited online facilitator or assessor course, and we'll pay for that. And that is done via blended learning online, and we outsource it to an excellent provider. And then, of course, I said to you earlier on that we will help you get your accreditation, and then there's lots and lots and lots of trainer support so that you don't feel alone. I'll come back to that in a moment. We've got an operations manual so that it'll give you some guidance. This operation manual is full of ideas, lots and lots and lots of useful tips and hints and things like that. Now, I started my first training company after working for NOSA, and I wish that I had this. I really, really do. We could have started making some decent money in a short while if we just had that support. We didn't. And at the time, of course, we all know that there wasn't the digital platforms that we've got nowadays. So this should get you up and running, making money, making a profit. Not just turnover, but making a profit as quickly as possible. And then also making sure that all your regulatory aspects are sorted in terms of your own legal standing and things of that nature. Okay, then we have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity in as much as we share our knowledge where possible with each other. One of the individuals, one of the licensees that we have here today, his name is Jerome. Jerome actually works both in South Africa as well as Angola. And he's a good example of if you need somebody in Witten, Cape Town, to do some work for you, maybe a working at heights course or a first aid course, that's Jerome's primary focus. And or you have somebody in Boksburg, Benoni, wherever, where you need training to be run. You can network with these people. The arrangement is between you and them, and we've got licensees literally from Dubai right down to Durbanville. And that makes for a wonderful opportunity. Okay, then, for those of you that feel you need to get your QCTO accreditation, we have a workshop that Penny runs on a monthly basis. Penny, when's the next one?
Next week, Thursday, the 11th.
Okay, so she just said now it's next week, Thursday, the 11th of September, and as a licensee and somebody wanting the accreditation, you would be able to go through the process with Penny. Okay, so here's a question. When do you need to be accredited? Well, there are a number of places where you do need it. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with this term competency. Competency is a legal word. It's defined in the Act and regulations. It's actually defined in the regulations. And it says there in the regulations two things. One, for a person to be declared competent, they must have the required knowledge, training, and experience. And it says, and where applicable, qualifications specific to the work or related tasks. Provided that, now this is an important one, where appropriate qualifications and training are registered in terms of the NQF Act. Those qualifications and that training must be regarded as the required qualifications and training. Okay, so I'm sure you understand that. Now, not everything has to be accredited. Not everything has to be competency-based. There are certain places where it is a must. So if you want to run those courses with the intent of issuing a certificate of competency, this is important that you get your accreditation. Now, there's a second portion to this. Not too sure how many of you would, I wouldn't know, in fact, how many of you would have read the entire regulation. That definition carries on. It says the competent person must be familiar with the Act and the applicable regulations made under the Act. Let me say that again. The competent person. So if you attend, let's say, a first aid course, that first aid course or the first aider must also be familiar with the Act and applicable regulations made under the Act. I often joke about it and I say, well, there's two courses there. You can do first aid, you can do forklift, or you can do working at heights, and then you come back and you do a Occupational Health and Safety Act awareness program so that the people are aware and familiar with the Act and the regulations. Okay, so where do we see this? Well, first five regulations, in fact, general safety regs, driven machinery regs, construction regulations, ergonomics regulation, and the physical agents regulation. It talks about those are the individuals, the first aider, and those people have to be declared competent. Now, of course, there is also an aspect where the Department of Employment and Labor wants in on the Act, and they want to approve certain people. This carries on. Unless it's appropriate to you, you don't have to worry about it, but asbestos and explosives and commercial diving and hazardous biological and hazardous chemical agents and major hazard installations. And from that, you can see that the law requires competency by way of definition. Now, I do know that a lot of people feel that competency is an NQF thing. Well, it's first in the Act, and then it's found with Saquicita, NQF, and so forth. Now, there is a document that you can actually acquire where the Department of Employment and Labor have laid out what they feel competency is all about. Very important. It's a two-page document. And once again, Natalie can send that to you if you wish. You can download it off our website and you have a look at that. It's very important that you have your head clear on this matter of what competency is. A training provider themselves cannot declare a person competent, whereas the law requires that the employer declare the person competent. But that's a debate and that's a discussion, and that's for a future date. Okay, having said that, let's move on. So why do clients want accreditation? And you're going to find this, and we don't have a problem with it. You always hear, is it accredited? Is it accredited? Is it accredited? Well, there are two reasons, or not two reasons, there are countless reasons why employers want accreditation. There's the BEE scorecard points, the SDL, the Skills Development Levy rebates, the fact that the client wants to bypass all the legal requirements and work with the accredited providers and make them responsible. Remember the whole thing about the mandatory? We believe that so many clients or employers feel that a unit standard, or certainly a curricula developed by QCTO, is adequate, that it covers the legal requirements. It doesn't. And on the right-hand side, we will say, why is this dubious? So as you look at that list over there, you suddenly realize, oh, I understand why clients want accreditation, but can you actually prove competence? Interesting. And remember, this is criminal legislation, and it warrants debate, warrants discussion, warrants research. Okay, so the last point of this is accredited trainers are assumed to be legally knowledgeable. Now, to be legally knowledgeable, it's more than just having attended a week-long course. This is probably a BProc or a BALLB or BCom Law or something like that. That makes you legally knowledgeable. And employers are under the impression if I get somebody to come run a legal liability program on my premises and for my staff, then I have complied with the law and they know exactly what they're talking about. Well, no, definitely not. If you had to land up in court and it had to be tested, you'll find out that it is quite often run by people who I like to regard as well-meaning novices. Okay, enough on that. So then we do say, and are encouraging people to get their accreditation. First and foremost, if you a prime licensee or a platinum licensee, it's all included. It's included in your package, and you will go through the process. We'll provide you with an Accredited kit via Google Drive. There's the monthly workshops that I just mentioned, the date, I think Penny said it's the 11th of September. We'll teach you how to do your own accreditation application, and we'll provide you with 3 QCTO skills programs. That's the ones that are relevant and available. The ones that are available currently that have been published for accreditation purposes are the 3 first aid courses. Okay, so I asked you or asked you to download it or to request it, that you get a copy of the prospectus. All this information is in the prospectus and a number of other videos that we've dealt with in the past. Penny will take you through a process of teaching you, showing you, helping you, guiding you, not doing it for you. And that's the whole purpose. Not doing it for you, but showing you how to do it. Because there are funny things in the QCTO arrangement, such as you can only get accredited for 6 programs, or is it 5, Penny? 5 programs at a time. And then you have to submit a brand new, fresh accreditation application. And you saw there were 67 possible programs. That means that you're going to have to go through accreditation after accreditation after accreditation after. And if you're using a consultant, good for them. They will love you. But wow, that's going to be an expensive process. So way, way better that we teach you, or Penny teaches you and or somebody from your team how to do your own accreditation. Now, that's just the one side. There are other reasons as well. Okay. We know that there's more coming, and that's the joy. Currently, there are 5 programs that have been approved. And all we're doing is we're waiting for them to publish it now. And the moment they're published, you can apply for accreditation for these topics. Okay, so having said that, there's more. There's probably another 20 or so other curriculum that are being written, being worked on. We've had sight of it. Penny and I had the privilege of serving on a committee, Health and Welfare CETA and a QCTO committee for a couple of months, where they were developing the outlines and so forth. Okay, so having said that, enough. Let's move on. The moment the QCTO has published, you can rock and roll. Now, I'm suggesting don't leave it until that time. Make sure that you know how to get your accreditation. You're ready for it. So let's say they decide, let's go with it right now. You can get your application in the moment you've got training material. So what we've done is that we've taken our existing legal compliance training material, the 25, and the moment they publish and it's made available, the curriculum is made available, we will then take our training material and our development team will take it and align it to the QCTO curriculum. So that's the plan. And we will do it as quickly as we can. But I suggest get your accreditation in the meantime so you've got it, albeit that you've got 1, albeit for first aid, as an example. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk you through the costings, what this is going to cost, because you can decide which of these would work for you. The first one is the platinum license, and this is mainly for those organizations that have multiple branches and thousands of people. And the pricing currently starts at 105,500 Rand, excluding VAT. And you'll see that there is an annual license fee, and all of that pricing is negotiated based on the size of the organization. And we have one company that operates in 11 different regions. So that's a good example. And we treat them slightly differently because obviously they're so much bigger. Then we've got the Prime license, which is in fact our flagship program. It's 49,500 Rand. And we have a program called Prime Plus. Now, I was just saying to you that the accreditation should be done by you and your team, but maybe you are literally a one-man band and you don't have the time or the effort or the energy. And what we'll do is one of our team will hold your hand. We won't do it for you. We're not consultants or agents. We'll hold your hand and then help you through this process to get your accreditation up front. Now here you'll see that the Prime license has a monthly fee, that's a license fee of 1,500 Rand per month. And that duration of that license agreement is 60 months, that's 5 years. And during which time we'll be providing you material, updates, support, workshops, webinars, and things of that nature. And when we run our webinars, it's not just for one person. If you've got a team of 10, all 10 can attend. We don't charge you individually. Okay. Then the moment we bring out new training material, you will get it. You don't pay extra for that. That's covered in the 1,500 Rand. Remember, once again, excluding VAT. Then we've got a basic license, which you'll see is considerably cheaper. And the reason is that we've taken out the QCTO aspects. And this would be appropriate if you happen to be beyond the borders of South Africa, where the QCTO accreditation SACWA to NQF is not relevant. And then from there, we've got a starter license. And you'll see there's an upfront fee, which is paid immediately. The moment the payment is made, what happens is that we will then deliver all the training material digitally to you and then start you on the journey. The starter license is slightly different. And when you look at the prospectus, you'll see that there are a couple of fewer things that you'll be receiving there. Okay. But the license there on the starter is only 500 Rand per month. It's not like a subscription fee in a way. And then, of course, if you decide that you want to buy the training material, we're more than happy to let you do that, where you go online and you can just purchase it using a credit card, and that's fine. But I just want to go, Penny has now, she's our financial director, has decided that we're going to continue with last month's special. And if you buy any 2 training programs, the training material, you'll get 1 free. You can chat to Natalie about that. She'll be able to provide you with more information. So have a look at what's there, see what would work for you. And then lastly, on this topic of the money, if you buy anything from us, let's say you buy an ergonomics training program, and you then decide that you want to become a prime or a basic licensee, we will discount what you've paid up to 50%. And that is a great encouragement. So you don't have to pay everything again and again and again and again. Now, the last thing that I'll just mention over here, and you can talk to Natalie and to Penny about it, if you find yourself in a situation where you're slightly cash flow strapped, talk to them. We have arrangements that can be made. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of the presentation. I want to just say this, and it's a very, very important aspect. Any expenditure in terms of developing a business, running a business, setting up a business is deductible. It's deductible. So the money that you spend there, let's say you're spending 69,500 Rand or whatever. If you have a decent set of books and you have an accounting system and you have somebody running it for you, you can claim that money back. That is so encouraging. Okay, so having said that, let's move on. I'm sure at this stage there are some of you that are going, oh, this is interesting. I'd like more information. So Natalie's number's on the screen. Her work number is 082 499 6911. That's 082 499 6911. And if you just grab your phone, take a photograph of that screen, and just send her the word quote. And which of those licenses kind of appeals to you? Her number, once again, is 082 499 6911, or you could go via the INTRA website. That means that you will get this information before the weekend. You'll be able to have a look at it and contemplate it and see whether this is something that you would like to do. From our point of view, we'd love to have you on board. We have about 100 plus licensees who are active at the moment, and we're looking to grow right into Africa. And we have no reason to believe that it's something that you can't do, because we've seen many people starting off green and getting going. And for those that are well versed in occupational health and safety and or training, this is a lovely model for them to use to get up and going. So let me finish off by just saying we're going to stop now and then open up for questions. And I'd love to have you ask your questions. So with that, and for those of you that are watching the video recording, thank you so much for joining us. You can pop your questions to Natalie on that number that you saw there. That number over there, you can ask questions, and or she'll send the questions through to me. But let's see if we can just deal with the questions right now. So for Penny and myself and Natalie and the rest of the team, we're going to say thank you kindly. It's been wonderful chatting to you and providing with some information here. And I'm going to stop the share right now. Thank you very much then. Don't go away.